What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams with Distance. I'm back for a video. I'm going to do two videos today, and then I'm going to kind of take a break, and I'll be back on Monday. But, this video today is about a middleweight that will not get as much acclaim as my other middleweights for next week's Top 5 Middleweight series. Just because his career didn't really last that long. But I'm going to talk about Darcy. Darcy, one of the pioneering fighters in Australian boxing. Some people believe that he could have became one of the best middleweights of all time. He had some quality victories. He was actually, even though he was a middleweight, he won the Australian heavyweight championship. Similar to a Sam Langford, who wasn't that big of a guy. And, I think he was like 150, 160 pounds, and he was able to win a heavyweight championship, and Darcy was able to do the same thing. So just imagine, what a reign as a middleweight champion would be for him. But, as time, Darcy was actually dominating the Australian boxing scene. He did have about 4 losses, but but the difference between a loss back then and a loss now is sometimes a loss now, can kind of hurt you a bit. But a loss then, was a lot different because, all these fighters are fighting everybody. And everybody was trying to fight everybody and stuff. So, Darcy did have 4 losses in a short career, very short career, that didn't even last. I don't think his career lasted 5 years, to be honest. But he did. What will signify his legacy was the fact that he did defeat a future champion, a man that became champion after he had passed away, and that was George Chip. But just imagine who Les Darcy could have faced. If he stayed alive. He could have faced Harry Greb, who who's a tough fighter, had a very good chin. Very tough. Came forward. Harry Greb, and then there was Tommy Gibbons, another good middleweight at that time, who I believe held the championship. But man, Les Darcy, I believe due to the First World War, he moved to the United States, and I think he died of I think he had got pneumonia and died. After he moved to America, because they were setting him up for a middleweight title shot. They're setting him up for a middleweight title shot. He fought a lot of top U.S. contenders. He was about to move. To avoid the war, conscription in Australia, which we know is a draft. He moved to the United States and he died. But now that you look at it, there's a lot of fighters who avoid the war just because they wanted to fight. Muhammad Ali, didn't want to fight in the Vietnam War, because he felt it wasn't his war to fight. But before that, you had Les Darcy in 1917, and a lot of his countrymen looked at him as a coward because just because he wasn't going to fight in the war, he just wanted to fight. And and it's ironic, how Ali and Les Darcy, they both were looked at as cowards by some of the media at the time, but now they're looked at as legends, as icons. Because, before there was Vic Darchinyan, Anthony Mundine, Jeff Finette, I believe how you pronounce his name, Costa Zoo. Before you had those guys, you had Les Darcy. And Les Darcy, I believe personally, is one of the pioneers of Australian boxing. And I did say months ago that I wasn't much aware of the Australian boxing scene, but I've been studying it and watching a lot of Australian boxing, and on top of that, when I was analyzing my top 5 for next week, I just thought Les Darcy was a name that will not be among some of the greats, some of the legends in the sport, but I think he's a name that deserves to be out there because I think he is a significant name in boxing's history because he's like to me another Salvador Sanchez. He's a guy that could have been, you know, and especially if he had if he had so much power, he was beating heavyweights in Australia, and had the power and the skill to do it. You had to be, he had to have, a big reign coming, especially after retirement of Stanley Ketchel, which was like a few years before. But the world was looking for another great middleweight champion at the time, and Les Darcy was being set up to become a boxing superstar, and he was being set up to become a boxing great. But unfortunately, it didn't happen because he died before his time, in, I believe 1917. But among the greats, among the legends, you have to think of Les Darcy. And if any of you guys get a chance, check out his book. I think it's called Les Darcy, My Story or something like that. It's a book just a book I saw in college. But anyway, that was my thoughts on Les Darcy. Thanks for watching. Peace.